I now call the Des Moines City Council regular meeting to session for October 27th. And with that, I'll have Councilmember Pennington lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Councilmember Pennington. Let the record reflect that all 7 members of the council are present. And is there any correspondence?
No, Mayor.
Okay. It'll be now time for public comment. I would just like to remind those participants that any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or become boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the council will be removed from the meeting, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. And the first person we'll have is Mr. Bill Bishop.
Thank you, Mayor Mahoney and council members. I am here to talk primarily about the development of the North Marina parking lot area, but I noticed that the Quarterdeck was on the agenda here when I got here, and I am concerned. I live near the periphery of the marina, and I have noticed, I think, some sprawl from the existing Quarterdeck property into of course, the adjacent yards with the tents and all and the chairs. And I feel that that probably may exceed what was originally intended when that lease was granted. And so I hope that maybe there's some consideration of the terms dealing with that sort of thing in the new lease that I understand is going to be entered into. But mainly I'm here to talk about the marina development and the hotel. And I have, my wife and I have lived here 5 years, and before that, for many years, we lived in the area. We launched our boats there. We moored a boat in the marina, and we're very familiar with that neighborhood, and over 30 years, we've been coming and going from the marina area. There's a number of reasons why we don't think the hotel development is appropriate there. I have written materials that I've provided to the clerk, and she'll distribute them to you. I'm sorry, I wasn't aware I had to make copies for everybody, but she said she'll scan it and send it to you. So my concerns mainly have to do with the public use of the marina, which we've had ample opportunity to observe over the last several years. We see the public market, we see the people using the fishing pier, particularly the squid fishermen who are out there at all hours of the night. I don't know if any of you have ever seen those people, but the pier gets a lot of good use from crabbers and fishermen and the squid fishermen. I think that the hotel will be, because of its proximity to that area, will be impinging on them and their activities. Very likely a hotel manager would want to do something to restrict the hours of use in that area. I also think there's no doubt the parking is going to be impaired because of this development. There will be, even with a structure built in the area there for parking, I don't think, if the residents of the hotel are parking there, I don't think it will be an advantage to our area to have additional parking because it'll be absorbed by the people that are in that hotel. There are a number of other things. There are lots of public uses of the property being made that I think are going to be adversely affected by it. If you've been down there on the public market weekend or on Saturdays, you've seen how well that is attended. The people that work at the market often park their vehicles in the lot that's right adjacent to it across the street, and that will be taken up by the parking facility, as I understand it. So that won't be available to those people in the future. And I also don't think that as I mentioned earlier, with the consumption of the parking garage by the hotel occupants, I don't think there'll be sufficient parking left over for everyone else. During COVID in 2020, 2021, and 2022, we have seen an increase. We moved there in 2018. I'm sorry, is my time up?
If you could just finish your comments up real quick, sir.
Yeah, I would just add that the families and the children and the high school students who have photos shot there for their prom and for their other activities and for the weddings, the use of this marina is very, very important for the community, and I think that the construction of that hotel is going to greatly interfere with that. And the rest of my information is in my written materials. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And I know the city clerk will make sure we get that material. Moving on to the next speaker, we have Ms. Sherry Frankberger. Did I say that correctly?
Well, it's been over a year that they've been shoring up and remodeling the north parking lot in the marina. And after all the machines roaring around and the pile driving and hammering and all this noise, it has turned out beautifully. And they have increased the walkway around the parking lot. They've built a very nice restrooms and food area, and they put planters out in the parking lot to have shrubs, and it's going to be very attractive, really an asset to Des Moines. And it can be used for many different things, like festivals and award ceremonies, all kinds of ideas that only our imaginations can think of. I can remember a few years ago, before COVID, coming up to a 4th of July celebration in this parking lot. They didn't allow any cars in, but there were hundreds of people milling around, and there were vendors selling food and vendors selling all kinds of 4th of July items. And there were kids running around with long sticks of colored lights that were blinking off and on. It was just very exciting. And because the marina controls all the lighting in the parking lot, when it became dark, they killed the lights, the vendors disappeared, the people disappeared, and we looked up in the air, and it was just amazing firework display right over us. It was so exciting. Well, after all of this effort and money and everything put into this north parking lot, now we're finding that some of the members of the city council want to rip into it and tear it apart. They want to haul away this new restrooms and food service area. They want to plop out there a huge hotel that will be 35 feet tall and have about 90 rooms into it. This will not benefit the citizens of Des Moines. It will ruin our waterfront, it'll ruin our view, and who will it benefit? It'll benefit the developers, the private money investors, and the handful of tourists that come in here to stay for a night or two. This is a real mistake. Please change your thinking on this. Save this waterfront for the citizens of Des Moines. Save our waterfront.
Thank you, Ms. Frankfurter. Moving on to Chris Tollefson.
Yeah.
Miss Chris Tollefson.
Thank you.
With a name like Chris, you're never sure.
Oh, yeah. I'd like to speak on behalf of all of the Des Moines citizens who use and love the marina and beach park, those who are not yet aware of the city's plans to make the changes that will alter its use forever. First, I'd like to thank council members Oxinger and Harris for speaking up for the residents of our city at the last council meeting. I believe the city's plan to build multiple 3-story buildings down on the waterfront blocking views is a travesty. The plan does away with the northern marina parking lot, where the plan is to create a plaza along with a water fountain. We don't need a water fountain when we've got nature's glorious water view. On the northern portion of the lot that has just undergone the expensive 15-month project, the plan is to demolish it for a 3-story hotel, changing and blemishing our skyline forever. The hotel appears to be in direct conflict with the city's Shoreline Master Program, which outlines placing new commercial development where other commercial development already exists, limiting non-water-oriented uses to locations away from the shoreline. With over 25 hotels in the Des Moines SeaTac area, I see no need for an additional hotel. With the city's current vision, cars will be parking up on 6th and 7th Streets in order to attend events in the park. It's apparent that the city is not concerned about the joy and love that our waterfront provides. Daily, hundreds of people come down to the parking lot to walk, fish off the pier, watch the sunset, and the boats coming in and out of the marina, including young parents with their kids holding pails and shovels, jumping up and down, excited to explore the beach. Elderly couples that require easy access to parking, walking hand in hand, as well as those meeting up to walk. The planning for this has been done on the QT, and yes, the August meeting had a turnout of at least 100 people, but the plan was not, I repeat, not well received as reported in the Waterland blog. The meeting was a sham, with the plans on a TV, not on a large screen, so all could see. It was held without a microphone, so those standing in the back could not hear, with only a few follow-up questions allowed. Not the type of meeting that a city would be presenting if it was proud of the changes it's presenting. Of the 33,500 citizens of Des Moines, 500 might be aware of this well-kept secret and the funds already spent on it to date. Where's the funding coming from for these severe changes to the marina? I certainly hope by not raising taxes to pay for additional municipal bonds. I plan on letting every person I encounter in Des Moines know about the current proposals, asking them to tell their neighbors and family of the city's plan. We cannot let this proposal proceed. I don't believe that there is a clear plan or charter for the future of our wonderful city, and would like to go on the books and suggest that the planning committee be re-established. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dobbson. Moving on to Brad Cheney. Okay. Moving on to Amy Cook-Thomas. Miss Amy Cook-Thomas?
Forget it, that's city manager.
Oh, okay. All right, got that. And then the last one would be Miss Jennifer Johnson.
Good evening, Council. I'm Jennifer Johnson. I'm the Court Executive Officer for the Des Moines Municipal Court. I am here to, I'm sure some of you have already received earlier today my resignation. I'm actually going to the city of Bremerton. I'm going to another water city, just need a different view. I want to say that I've been here for 23 years and 10 months. I definitely thought that I would be retiring here, but I've decided not to. I'm moving on. I think it's time. I just want to say that I've been through 4 judges, 3 city managers, numerous council members, and I've learned a lot. I thrive in technology, I thrive in helping courts. And that's what's an opportunity's come up now. A court needs help, and so I'm gonna be doing that. We have a great team. We do. You have a great court staff, and you should be very proud of them, because I am. They work very hard. Very hard. They make this court run. I just give them the tools to do it. Tonight, Ms. Patrick and Ms. Serena Daigle will be fielding questions for the court. I'm turning the ship over to them, and they're gonna do a great job. I thank you all. I thank the community for giving me these years here, and I wish you all the best. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. We appreciate your efforts. With that, that's the last of for this portion of the public comment. I'll give that back to the city clerk. And with that, Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you for the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. First on our list is the pleasure of having Amy Cook-Thomas come and talk about a burning boat event.
So when I came up with this bright idea of burning something in the city of Des Moines, I thought I would start with the fire department. So I brought Captain Brad Cheney with me, and he's going to introduce this event for us.
Hi there. I apologize. I knew that we were presenting, but I signed us up as public speakers for the open comment period. I own that, so I apologize. Thank you. So like she said, my name is Brad Cheney. I do happen to be a captain for South King Fire and Rescue, your local fire department. My good friend Amy here came to us with an idea that I just really couldn't say no to. It's called a Burning Boat Festival. And I know it sounds really scary when we're talking about marinas, environmental safety, all of those things. Trust me, we've taken all of that into consideration. That's kind of one of the things that the fire department is good at. So Amy went, and I don't want to speak necessarily too much on her behalf, but she went to an amazing festival in Montana that was a burning minivan festival. And what it was, I think we have too many minivans around already, so that's why we changed it up. But the minivan festival was basically a suicide prevention New Year's event. And what it was trying to bring people together, bring the community together to raise funds to help make a difference in suicide prevention. So we took a focus and partnered with Des Moines PD to do a similar event. But of course, it's Des Moines. And in Des Moines, we have boats. So we changed it to a Burning Boat Festival. And we've partnered with Maritime High, which is one of our local schools here in the Highline School District. They're actually going to build us a wooden boat. And it's going to be safe of chemicals. It's going to be safe of paint. None of those major concerns. We don't have fiberglass or anything like that. And even one of the families owns a lumber yard, so we're hopefully getting all the wood donated for this boat. The purpose of the event is to sell tickets and sell merchandise and raise awareness for mental health. And as a participant in this festival, you would come in with your ticket and you would write down something on a piece of paper that maybe you need to let go of. Maybe there's something that's weighing heavy on your heart. Maybe there's something that's just holding you back over the last couple of years and everything that our communities have been through. There's been fractured relationships, loss of loved ones, you name it. The laundry list is there. And so this is a chance, I think, for the fire department and the police department to really come together and help rally the community of the city of Des Moines to have an event that's one of a kind for our area. It hasn't been done over here. It's been celebrated in many other countries. It's used as celebrations for ringing in the new year, releasing of bad demons, all of those things. And I think this would really help the city of Des Moines reconnect together. It'll bring us together to just kind of start anew. Let's ring in 2023 with a brand new year, with a music festival, with some arts and some crafts. Amy's been working really hard with all of our local vendors and everybody already to bring us all together for one big event. The boat itself, just so you know, it's probably going to be about 8 feet, 10 feet long, maybe 4 feet high or so, nothing crazy. We're working with the City of Des Moines Park and Recs down at the beach park. We have a safe place to do it. It's not going to be getting into the waterways or anything like that. The cleanup will be nice and simple. So we've taken all of those safety precautions into consideration. And I think that's all that I would like to say, but I'll let my good friend Amy touch on the other parts.
Thank you for letting us speak tonight. We're hoping to have 400 attendees at this event this year. We're using an online nonprofit fundraising platform called givebutter.com. So we have some promotional materials we have dropped here. We already have raised about 12% of our goal. The goal is about $35,000. Well, we have donations online happening. We have sponsorships happening. Sound Transit is sponsoring, Columbia Bank. We have a local dentist. We have ABC Grocery. People are jumping in to sponsor this event. It really is for mental health services and substance use disorder treatment, because we know so much crime and homelessness and a lot of problems that we're seeing today are affiliated with those issues in our communities. So we're trying to raise money for that. The event that I went to in Montana was just amazing. I still get tingles when I think about it today. All these people from it was a very diverse group who came, different ages, came to this event and just sponsored this suicide awareness and prevention event. And so I think it would be a fun event. It does happen a lot in Asian countries. This happens as a way to ward off sickness. It happens in Scotland, where they burn a Viking ship every year. The Maritime Museum in Long Island, New York, burns a boat that's actually a real wooden boat that has varnish on it, which is weird. But they do that every Halloween in New York. So these burning boat festivals happen all over the world, and we think it would be a really fun event for a good cause for the city of Des Moines. So thank you for letting us be here. Oh, it's being donated to, this year Valley Cities is the recipient of any monies raised. And that may change from year to year, but because Valley Cities offers those services in the Des Moines area, that is the beneficiary this year. Okay? All right, do you have any questions for us?
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Buxton.
Thank you. So I follow Tina Orwell on Instagram and Facebook, and she was just in a meeting, I think either today or yesterday, in regard to one of the big subjects was the launch of 988. So I was just wondering if 988 would have a booth there, or if you have networked with her at all. I bet she'd really like to be involved. Okay,
I will do that. I will do that.
thank you.
Anything else?
I'd like to call upon the council, with our Hearts and Minds Fund, would we consider donating, say, $500 to this cause?
I second that.
So I have a motion and a second. All right, all those in favor of donating $500 from the Hearts and Minds Fund?
Thank
Done.
you so much.
All right, there you go, you have $500 more towards your goal.
Thank you. We will have propane fire pits to roast s'mores. We're selling s'mores kits. We'll have hot chocolate and coffee. So far, no alcohol at the event. That might happen later, but that's not really our focus for the event. So we will have a branded s'mores fire pit for the council. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Nutting.
I just
You look
wanted
so
to
much
say-
alike, yeah.
I know, right?
Twins.
Uncanny, right? I just wanted to say, my family and I plan on being down there. And have you signed up any big acts yet? You know, like Tiesto, Martin Garrix, or any of those guys?
We're hoping for Macklemore, actually.
Yeah.
But that hasn't panned out yet. No, in Montana, they actually had a playlist of Great Balls of Fire burning down the house. We didn't start the fire. And so we want to have probably, if we have live music, we'll have it in one area and we'll have our fire-themed playlist in another area.
Very good. Exciting.
All right, I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to talk next a little about, I think we've got some photos of fall planting. This is the first year we've done this, taking advantage of the planters throughout the city we put out in the spring for the summertime, which were especially beautiful this year. And this year we're actually going to do, or have done, a fall planting, more winter type colors and pastels, but I just wanted to share that with the council. Great, thanks. And finally, short report tonight. We have on consent, you will see, there's an item that relates to the Quarterdeck, which is a facility that we're very pleased, located in Des Moines, homegrown, and has been very successful in many different ways in terms of being able to employ people and serve as a gathering spot and create a lot of goodwill. And so Ken is willing to take any questions. Ken Rogers is here, the owner, and is happy to take any questions if you have any, council, relative to that consent item or anything else. Or why don't you come up, Ken, if you'd like to say something.
Thank you for the opportunity to respond to questions. This is the first I've heard that much detail about the burning boat activity, and that sounds absolutely terrific. I'll be getting in touch with you later to see about sponsorships. So that sounds terrific. Again, thank you all for showing an interest in what we're looking to do down at the Quarterdeck. And coincidentally, 4 years ago today, we opened. It was our opening day. Just worked out strangely. And thank you. Since day one of opening, we have received an amazing amount of support from the community, our customers, and if you remember, nobody back then could have ever imagined what was going to happen about a year later, right? Nearly everything changed. A year later, we'd all be living very different lives. Everything changed except the support of this community and our customers and the people that we're on the city council and the city staff at that time. We'll never forget that. And we are eternally grateful. There are a lot of small businesses that didn't make it. A lot of them. And we have been fortunate because of where we're located. It's worth remembering that this small local shop wouldn't have been possible without the support and cooperation from the council and city staff, especially the marina staff. Recall that in partnership with these groups, the council and staff helped turn a vacant, rarely used space into a venue that created revenue, jobs, new jobs, enhanced community enjoyment, and a welcoming entrance for the boating community. All of this was accomplished with zero cost to the city, zero. A city project that adds value to the community, creates jobs and city revenue where there was none before, and does it at no cost is a remarkable accomplishment. The city council and the city staff should be applauded for that. If approved, the lease agreement that's on your agenda will help allow a young, hardworking, local, female entrepreneur advance towards her goal as a small business owner. It will continue to build community and enhance the marina, so the use of the marina and the waterfront. So I'm happy to respond to questions that anybody might have. Thank you.
Councilmember Steinmetz.
Yeah, Ken. I mean, the Quarterdeck has been a great addition to the marina. I really think it has been that. And I understand that the per foot cost, or rent, if you will, is the same as is paid by CJ Marine down the street. So you're paying the equivalent amount using less space than CJ, but is that correct?
I think that's consistent with all of the marina space, with CJ Marine and perhaps SR3. I'm sorry, CSR, not CJ.
CSR, my mistake.
I can confirm that.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay. I'm not familiar with the terms of their leases specifically, but that's my understanding.
Okay. And one of the issues that has come up from a few constituents are the entertainment events. And my understanding is you guys have a pretty strict limit of how late, and it's not very late. Can you at least let everybody who's here and listening know what are the conditions under which you employ acts?
Yes. So historically, well, first of all, our lease requires us to cease our operations at 10 o'clock at night. So with regard to music or anything else, state liquor law allows us to be open until 2 in the morning or something like that. But our lease requires us to close at 10 o'clock at night, which is consistent with what the parking lot rules were at the time when we entered into the lease to begin with, so pre-construction and the rest of it. So that's our first gate of operations. No operations past 10, obviously, to include music. We've taken it on ourselves to try to schedule music, live entertainment in the afternoons, typically on Thursdays and Sundays, between roughly 2 or 4, and have it conclude by 6 or 7. Sometimes it goes later because, as we all know, the sunset changes pretty dramatically from one season to the rest, but certainly try to be done before sunset. So to the extent sunset's earlier, we close that music off earlier, and if it's later, maybe we're in a little bit later. So we don't have a hard and fast policy in terms of hours besides the 10 o'clock piece, but generally it's in the afternoon on Thursdays and Sundays for approximately 2 hours.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Roxiger.
Yes, yes, having the Quarterdeck here is I think a positive addition to the community. And I think one of my concerns is that we're indicating that the lease is for the pad area, the 40 by, is it 15-foot area? Is the business viable just on that site, or do you need the additional space that, the lawn area and stuff in order for it to be viable?
I guess I would want to understand better what your thoughts are around the viability part, but generally what's happened on us, to speak to the other commenter earlier, that was our original sort of starting plan, And when COVID did what COVID did to everybody's businesses, spacing, indoor seating restrictions, well, actually no indoor seating allowed. Spacing restrictions for seating, ventilation requirements and all that stuff really forced us into an outdoor seating arrangement. The document that the original lease references shows several of these spaces available at the marina floor. This particular space, I believe it's called space number 4, might be 3, can't remember if it's 3 or 4. But it talks about seating opportunities to the west available to that space for operating. We expanded into that space as a result of the COVID requirements, which closed off the indoor seating, which we had quite a bit of at the time. Absent that, we'd be out of business. If we couldn't do indoor seating and didn't have any place to sit outside, there wouldn't have been customers like many businesses experienced. That evolved into an extension as COVID wore on the second year, with some uncertainty around when or if it would ever be relaxed in terms of the spacing requirements. And so we were able to utilize, through permission with the staff, the space to the south of what we normally occupy. So the ability to accommodate the customer demand, sometimes it's pretty high, and satisfy the folks that want to enjoy that space is oftentimes those spaces get full. Right now there's nobody there. It's very weather dependent, as you might imagine. And so we have from the very beginning invited and welcomed people to get food in town and bring it down to our space, and there's no requirement for them to purchase anything. The space outside the front of the shop, the building itself, is demarked for the purposes of selling alcohol, which is a requirement from the liquor board. However, that doesn't prevent us from allowing anybody we want to sit there. They cannot legally bring their own alcohol in there. That's not permitted. Nor is it legal for them to drink alcohol pretty much anywhere in the marina, but certainly not in our space. If somebody chooses, and they're of age and with the proper ID, to consume alcohol, they are allowed to do that if they purchase it from us and stay within those marked areas. So I don't know if that's responsive to your question. We would be definitely at a disadvantage to not have the opportunity to use that space when the crowd sort of wants it. I'm not equipped to really talk about viability in terms of the business. It's very seasonal and very weather dependent. So I don't know if that's responsive, but.
Okay, I guess then my question would be to the administration, why would we not put in the lease the expanded area?
Well, if we leased him that area, then that becomes no longer a public space. So the decision was made essentially that he can use that area, but it remains open to the public. So so what Ken had just mentioned, that anybody can buy food from Red Robin, walk into that area, eat it. If we lease that space to him, he could say, hey, you got to be a customer here, you can't come in. And so the kind of a cost-benefit analysis, if we charged him an extra $300, we would lose a lot of public space in the marina. So really that would be the option.
Okay, so then recently in Redondo, the police have been cracking down on the use of alcohol and marijuana in public spaces. If we're recognizing this is a public space, how is it that there's not a problem here with the Liquor Control Board?
Well, by allowing Ken to use it, he has the gates up that are, and the ropes that are compliant with the liquor control requirements.
There's a process to identify the service area, and they have kind of strict requirements. And in addition to that, it's incumbent on us, even though it's public space, we still have to enforce it. So if somebody comes into that space and wants to smoke marijuana or consume alcohol that they didn't purchase from us, we have to ask them to leave as a function of our service area. And then naturally, if they go outside of that, then it's up to law enforcement to take on. Now, if they refuse to leave after we ask them, then we'll call law enforcement. But for the purposes of the service area, as the liquor board wants to identify it, we have to pay attention to that.
Okay, so for I guess I'm worried about, you know, on behalf of the operator, that if we don't have, you know, it designated that this is, I mean, what's to stop us from saying, okay, we're gonna change our minds, we're talking about moving things around in the marina, and if we, I know there's provisions in the lease to move to some other area, but what if they say that, okay, we're only gonna give you half of the space that's available? There's no guarantee in the lease that they have the amount of space available that they're currently using.
That's correct.
In the spirit of a partnership with the staff and the council, we are all on the same page with wanting to provide good quality service to the public. Mm-hmm. And to the extent that there needs to be a reduction in that service area, it's probably for a good reason. And we would figure out a way to try to accommodate one another in that situation.
Okay, well, I think to me, it seems a little difficult. I mean, you know, the tenor of the council or the administration and stuff is, you know, changeable, you know, with voters at any time. So it's, I would think that the operator would want a little more of a guarantee that the space is going to be available.
I guess my perspective on that is, at any point, if the city council chose to, they could end the lease under the terms of the lease, you know, just to stop it. Those provisions are available. So yes, I fully grasp what you're suggesting, and that's part of business risk.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you're giving yourself not enough credit, Ken. You know, you and I both have been at the marina long enough. There have been several businesses that have taken a whack at having a restaurant there. And basically, you're the first one who marketed properly and really put your shoulder into making it a serious place. That's just the fact. And it's you know, and I am, and your staff, of course, and I guess that speaks to the fact that if you put out a good product, you can, you know, you can do well, but you can have the best location on the planet and and tank. We've all seen it who've been in the area. This is not your thing, but I think it would have been better if all of that stuff about the service area and such had been in the packet for the discussion. Given the fact that the marina floor is, I'm just being rhetorical, given that the marina floor is, it's a long-term planning thing, and to leave things so open-ended does neither the city or your successor any great service. But that takes nothing away from what you've accomplished. It's a wonderful thing that you've started, and I guess that's my concern, is how do we keep the flexibility for the floor, but also, you know, keep your thing going, because it has been so hard to get something of your value. Yeah, thanks.
No, thank you for those comments. They're much appreciated, but it's absolutely a fact that the only reason the place does well is because of the staff, because I can't be there all the time. And frankly, they do a better job than I do a lot of times dealing with customers, because my patience are starting to wear thin. But they do a great job of promoting the notion that it's a community place. We've worked hard to not create an environment that feels like a business in the strict sense, like this is our space, and you know, you can't come in here unless you're going to buy product from us. We were trying to find a nice balance between using a really great space that wasn't being utilized by the public very often, maybe except for 4th of July and the occasional farmer's market, and turn it into a place that people want to come to and hopefully see it as an asset to that waterfront area. So it's always trying to find that balance, and obviously, of course, not lose money and keep everything looking good too. But the next, or the person that's likely to take over that's identified in the lease, they are 100% on board with that. And I think it would be difficult, it'd be really hard to find somebody that understood that any better, because I wouldn't be able to explain it to them. She's lived the cycle through before, during, and after COVID, summers, great summers, cruddy winters. So I think the likelihood of success is about as high as you could want with somebody that's taking over a new business, because there's really nothing left to know, unless there's some crazy surprise, natural disaster or something like that. But as far as a regular, normal business operation, I can't imagine anybody being more informed or more interested in preserving the character and the nature of the operation, and the willingness to work with staff or whoever.
I have to follow up actually, because I did have, you and I are, you know, in the sunset of our lives, right? Okay, and, but the person taking over Mackenzie, right, she's eyes open that this might, I mean, when you have a little restaurant, man, people do not, you put your life into it. And councils do change. She understands. I'm not trying to sound all dad here, but she understands that is a possibility, regardless of how opportune the moment seems to be now.
I've encouraged her to seek outside counsel specifically on that, as well as, you know, structuring the financing so that she doesn't find herself.
Yeah, I don't want you to speak for her, but I'm just,
No, I'm just letting you know what I've done to that regard. If she would like, or you would like, I'm not speaking for her either.
Yeah.
But and I'm solid that she understands that dynamic. Maybe, you know, anybody as they age, they become more aware, hopefully more wise on how things work. But the reality is, I don't think the community will change to the degree that the council might change or the staff might change. So I think the community's interest in that space serving as kind of what it has been, and that continuity is probably not likely to change, at least very much. With regard to the staff and the council, clearly it can change whenever the elections occur, over lots of different things. But I think the community, I think that's demonstrated from the presentation that was done when people put the stickers on the board a couple weeks ago at the senior center. They want sort of what that space is offering. That also is consistent with the project that happened 5 years ago with the Argosy boat. Similar format, same kind of thing in that space, coffee, wine, beerish sort of feel. So I think we're both pretty comfortable with the notion that the community's not going to turn 90 degrees on us, even though, and realistically, probably not staff or the council, but it's a possibility. But I think less so with the community sort of perspective.
Thank you, sir.
Michael.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I had the pleasure to meet Mackenzie's father, and you're right, you're not her father. And the other thing, I don't want the message to go from here, Councilmember Harris, that there's anything unstable or uncertain about the future of Des Moines relative to the marina and economic development and opportunities. This community has stepped forward to support a really wonderful project. That's the message about the Quarterdeck. We're happy with Ken's success, with the employment you were able to create, with the sense of place you were able to create. We look forward to you, Mackenzie, building on that. And I think the message is not that the council's going to change and everyone's at risk. The message is the city's moving forward, and the council has, up to this point, been extremely supportive of those efforts, and that will continue. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Buxton, and then I have you, Councilman Pennington.
So I don't have any questions. Just to add on to what our city manager just said, and what you said, Ken, about the community's pleasure at that place. I go down there. This is just a personal story, but I feel like every time I go down there, I have a half-hour or 45-minute vacation. I feel like I step out of my city of Des Moines bubble, my family, even Tracy Buxton, and I feel like I'm nothing, nobody. I just get to look at the water and the mountains and sip whatever I decide to sip, you know, and the customer service, it's a top-down thing. 2 stories. I remember one time sitting there enjoying myself thoroughly in the summertime, and it started getting chilly, and Ken walked around, and he put blankets on everybody's laps. That's just a different kind of service. But it's top-down, Ken, because Mackenzie does the same kind of thing. One time I walked across the parking lot. By the time I got there, she had my peppermint tea ready for me. And those are just 2 stories, but I'm just saying that's the kind of service, community service thing that draws people in. Other people feel exactly the same way I do. It's more than just a place to go get something to drink and sit down. And when we're talking about this public space that they create there, they take care of it too. I mean, the park staff is not wiping down those picnic tables and those chairs. The Quarterdeck is providing those chairs and wiping those chairs down and wiping down those picnic tables for the community to come and use, and emptying their garbage. And so it's this symbiotic relationship with the city that offers this amazing thing to the community that just hasn't been down there. I've lived here for 40 years, and this kind of thing has never been down there. And now it is, and people gather because it's a microcosm of the thing that they're wanting all down on that entire marina floor. The charisma, the service, the smiling, the laughter, the music, the gathering. It's all of that. So I have no doubt from the depths of my soul that Mackenzie can carry that. She's a sharp gal, and she loves people, and she loves what she does down there, and we feel it. So you go, girl.
Councilmember Pennington.
Yeah, so Ken, I just wanted to thank you for taking the risk. I mean, the city identified some pads down there, several of them that they would like to see, you know, if a business would be successful, and you were willing to, you and your wife were willing to step up and take that risk and invest your own money into that and your own time, and you took a big risk, and you took on an experiment, and it was a partnership with you and the city, and thank you for doing that, because you've really proven that businesses can be successful, that what the community's asked to be down there is successful. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I think the fact is your business is one that not only is successful, but it builds community, and then it also shows the potential down at the marina, which I think are important indicators of our future. The difference between the SR3 and CSR leases are that space that they rent, it does not have any access to the public at all, unless you're brought in as a customer or something like that, but it's usually with guidance and so forth. They're gated, they're protected, and so forth. This particular one, liquor laws, public space, combined use, so forth, I think it's fair only to charge for the pad. The other space is a flexible piece. Now, yes, it can be used for their economic advantage, and I think it should be, but it's also never had any issues unless, of course, under the thing where if they bring in their own alcohol or smoke marijuana or use drugs where they're asked to leave. The thing is that anybody and everybody has the ability to use that space. So I think it's a fair contract. And just in closing, I want to thank you for the efforts. You prove something to the city and the community about what can be done and what's potential there. And I think this represents that. So with that, is there any more questions or comments before? Okay, go ahead, Councilman Roxer.
I just want to make clear that I'm in no way, denigrating the Quarterdeck. I mean, I think, you've done a great job and all of that. My concern is protecting the business's interest in this place. And I would like to see us, somehow be able to put this in a little bit more solid on the part of the owner of the Quarterdeck, more solid lease.
Thank you very much, Ken.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Mayor, that concludes the manager's report tonight.
All right, thank you, Michael. All right, will the city clerk please read the consent agenda?
Item 1, approval of vouchers. Item 2, approval of minutes. Item 3, small business Saturday proclamation. Item 4, Quarterdeck change of ownership and lease agreement. And that concludes the consent calendar, Mayor.
Councilmember Nutty?
I move to approve the consent calendar as read.
I have a second from Councilmember Pennington. Is there any council member that wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, item 4.
Item 4? Okay, So we'll be voting on items 1, 2, and 3 for consent. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0, those pass. Okay, moving to item 4 for the Quarterdeck change of ownership and lease agreement. I turn the floor over to you, Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to, given everything that has been said, and the strategic planning for the marina, I think it would be more appropriate to move this discussion, basically put this discussion off, if possible, until some future date where the marina plan itself is more solid. To me, basically what we're doing is locking in that space for 10 years, and the marina floor.
Councilmember Harris, are you making a motion that this get postponed until
I think so. I would like to find out basically.
marina development are formalized?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think it should, if possible, I would ask the city attorney, when is basically the hard deadline for, for renewing this lease?
Well,
Or could it be put off for a month or two into next year?
potentially, but I will just note that Section 8.5 of the contract relates to relocation. The structure is portable, and we always knew that, and we always knew that there might be some sort of redevelopment in that area. And so we have provisions in the lease that if the city were to decide to put something there, they would have to relocate to somewhere else on the marina floor. So.
But that's, I'm sorry, that's just not against you, but basically the thing works because of the expanded footprint.
So let's just deal with the motion. So you want to postpone it?
I would like to I'd make a motion.
To the first meeting in January? Do you want to set a date or anything like that?
I think it should be after the first meeting of the Economic Development Committee. I would remand this to the Economic Development Committee in January, and then be brought forward.
So you're aware that it's already been before that committee?
Yeah, but this to me, my argument is that this is part of the strategic plan of the marina and should not be voted upon until the entire plan is in place.
Okay,
It's
so
not
you're,
fair to either side.
so just to clarify, your motion is that it be delayed to the meeting immediately following the January Economic Development Committee's
I think it should
meeting,
be remanded to the Economic Development Committee in January.
and then take an action from there.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a second?
And as the chair, I decline that request.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and take the motion and we'll take the vote, but I recognize your position. Go ahead.
I'll second it for this reason. We've had 3 speakers here tonight, and we've had letters to the council about the change of what's going on at the marina. To me, this lease is not stable enough, given, some of the recent actions as to, the change in plans. So I'd like to see it come back and firm it up a little bit better. Whether that takes until the January meeting, that's what the motion is, but I'd like to see us take a longer look at this.
Okay. Councilmember Harris, your second time.
See, here's the thing. What I'm thinking about is the success of the Quarterdeck intrinsic upon that particular spot, or is there another part of the marina where it could provide all the same benefits, but also make for a better marina master plan? Because I'm of the mind that it is the really strong business sense of Ken and his staff that have been key to the success, not the location itself. And I think we have to think about the marina floor holistically. So I just want to, if it were me, I would want to investigate, can it do just as well and have some, so that it frees up, makes the thinking about the whole plan more flexible. That's it.
All right, Deputy Mayor Buxton, and then what do you?
So we do have other leases that are active right now on the marina floor, correct?
Correct.
So are those leases, do we feel like those leases are hampering our redevelopment plans, or is that just something that you deal with on a one-by-one basis as you work through the plan? In other words, do you interrupt everybody's leases? Do you prevent everybody from ever signing or re-upping leases in a situation that you're redeveloping? Or do you go forward with your business and then work through it as you develop your marina floor? And it doesn't make sense to me that you would keep somebody from creating a lease because you've got this big plan that's going to be moving forward.
Deputy Mayor, so a couple of comments regarding your comment. So, you know, CSR has a lease, working boatyard. Early on, probably 2015 or so, council discussing the future of the marina emphasized the value council felt would exist from retaining a working boatyard. That's the basis. That's the basis of that. The idea that just casually saying, well, they can move, fails to take into account this very significant infrastructure costs associated with locating in that particular spot. And I don't think that it's a cavalier decision. I think that the Quarterdeck, if anything, has proven the viability of the marina, and and the symbiotic positive nature between, for example, the ferry service and the Quarterdeck, and the future opportunities that exist for things like that and for other things to be built upon that. So we're not going to have, and I have to, a friend of mine was in Detroit, and I said, well, go check out the Renaissance Center, because that's what Councilmember Harris sees for the city. We are not going to be doing that kind of master planning development where everything changes. It's going to be done in an incremental, appropriate size manner as far as I know. And that's what council will support or be asked to support, putting out a new RFQ. But I just don't see how we can do anything but be exceedingly appreciative of the efforts that Ken and his staff and everyone in Mackenzie now have made for this to be successful and for it to be a statement about the viability of our marina, to create placemaking and economic development and job creation and all these positive reasons to come to Des Moines and enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion before I take a vote on the motion? So the motion, just to reiterate, is to postpone this decision and move it back to the Economic Development Committee in January. I'm going to take about all those in favor. Raise your right hand. I see Councilmember Harris. I see Councilmember Oxker. All those opposed? I see Councilmember Pennington, Councilmember Steinmetz, Deputy Mayor Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, and myself. Motion fails 5-2, or 2-5. Is there? Go ahead.
With this being in the Economic Development Committee, a couple times as I remember, and then Ken and Mackenzie coming to us and speaking and working through everything, I think this has been well vetted. With that, I make the motion to approve the lease agreement with the Nourishment LLC for the Quarterdeck and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement substantially in the form as attached, as well as to take the necessary steps to terminate the existing lease with DM Harborside.
Deputy Mayor Buxton.
Second.
All right. Let's go ahead and take the vote. I'm sorry?
Don't we need discussion?
Well, I thought we just had a discussion. I'll open the floor to you if you'd like to discuss. Councilmember Oxiger.
Yes. Please understand, in no way am I, casting any doubt on what you're doing. I want to make sure from our side that we're being fair to you. And I think this is a discussion that we need to have, because we've got plans for the marina are changing, that people, didn't have any warning about, the people that are concerned about the hotel, that in the adjoining properties. We need to nail this stuff down legally. Now, the fact that we've had the discussion now, there is a trail that, of course, if anything legal comes up, they can come back and see that this was discussed with council. So it's at least valuable in having that discussion tonight. But I just think, you know, this is too iffy on your part. But I wish you well.
Any other comments? I'll start with Councilmember Harris, and then I'll go to you, Councilmember Steinmetz.
I will just say, I feel no need to be defensive about, I can, you know, you can be supportive of the business but this is a discussion of the entire marina, and I will push back against something the city manager said. You know, the most successful operation in this city's history is that marina, 100% public. It had a very unpretentious mission. It brought in 4, it cost 3, go home 5 o'clock, and basically we've done everything in our power to make it more complicated than it needs to be. If it develops into greater things, that's wonderful. But it was successful. And it was a wonderful idea as a basis of municipal government. It's the thing that the public should be most proud of in Des Moines. And you know, the thing is, you have to think about every square foot of that floor, which is the public's, in terms of how does it maximize not only revenue, but also the well-being of the next 50 years for everybody, not just the few hundred or thousand who frequent it now. Does it generate the revenue that powers other things that we will need to do in the future? And is it's really an existential question. What does this city want to be? And obviously, there needs to be a way
Point of
to
order,
have the
Mayor.
Quarterdeck
I'll let him finish.
succeed.
If you could wrap up your
And
sir.
there needs to be a way for the Quarterdeck to succeed and consider the basically 25 years from now, not what is convenient in the moment, not 2 years, not 4 years, not 6 years, 25, 50. That's the time horizon. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Steinmetz.
Yeah, I'd like to speak in favor of the motion. I think we need to make this simple. There's a successful business down there. I think we need to keep it there, and I think we need to sign a lease that has been negotiated in good faith between all the parties. Ken, who's older and seen it, and hopefully a little wiser for it, and Mackenzie, who, as I understand it, you know, I think you're very capable, but also been advised to get your own counsel, and I assume that you have. And so, eyes wide open on both sides. This is a simple, straightforward proposition of keeping the most successful business in terms of the community down at the marina. That's as simple as that, and I think we should do this. Thank you.
Councilmember Pennington.
So, Councilmember Steinmetz, you know, I echo what he says. As part of the Economic Development Committee, this contract was negotiated with our attorney, with presuming your attorneys, and everybody knows, it's no secret, that there's economic development and change happening in the marina. Both parties know that. Both parties have agreed to this contract. It's been vetted through their attorneys, and you know, it's great that we want to play Big Brother, but everybody's, you know, able to make decisions and go forward with what they want to do in an informed way. So it's nice, but everybody knows what's going on. It's not a secret with this. It's, like I say, been through the Economic Development Committee, and we've reviewed it. They've reviewed it. Our attorneys reviewed it. Our attorneys protecting our interests. Their attorneys protecting theirs. I think, you know, agree again with Councilmember Steinmetz. It's time to move on. Thanks.
I would add that actually Councilmember Harris made my argument for me, The fact is that we are looking at the marina. We're thinking 2075. We're not thinking 2022. And this is one small piece of it to get us there. With that, let's go ahead and take one more comment. Go ahead.
No.
Your second time.
That's, you're committing that primary spot, okay, if you're really thinking of that horizon. The only thing that needs to be in a marina is a boat service yard. Everything else is up for grabs if you're thinking, if you really are thinking holistically, okay? And a boat service yard can be, you could move it, south, you can move it here or whatever. You don't need, the boat service yard doesn't need it to be in a particular spot to paint a boat. But everything else should be up for grabs as far as the 33,000 and plus and where they're going to be in the next 20, 25 years. Things might feel very different. I always think in terms of what does this lock in 15, 20 years from now. That's how my mind works, but that's it.
I couldn't disagree more. I think there are so many components to the marina other than the fact that there's boats in it. In this modern day and age, where I travel around scuba diving and taking boats out of various marinas, the amenities are an absolute necessity as part of a marina in this day and age, and it will be in the future. With that, let's go ahead and take the vote. All those in favor of the motion that of Councilmember Nutting on the Quarterdeck change of ownership lease, please raise your right hand. I see Councilmember Pennington, Councilmember Steinmetz, Deputy Mayor Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, and myself. All those opposed, I see Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Oxiger. The motion passes 5-2. And I have to apologize. We got into item 4 before I read the proclamation that I'm required to write. Right. So with that, I will go out of order here. Whereas, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 32.5 million small businesses in the United States. And whereas small businesses employ 46.8% of the employees in the private sector of the United States, and whereas 79% of consumers in the United States value the contribution small businesses make in their community, whereas 96% of customers who plan to shop on Small Business Saturday said the day inspires them to go to small, independently owned retailers or restaurants and they have not been to before, or would have otherwise tried. Whereas 92% of the companies planning promotions on Small Businesses Saturday said that the day helps their business and stands out during the busy holiday shopping season. And whereas 59% of small business owners said Small Business Saturday contributes significantly to their holiday sales each year. And whereas Des Moines supports our local businesses that create, boost our local economies and preserve our neighborhoods. And now, therefore, the Des Moines City Council hereby proclaims the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small business and merchants of the Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Signed this day, the 27th of October by me, Mayor. And I would just reiterate, please, not only you don't need a special day to use our local businesses, please do. They depend on you as much as when you want them, you depend on them. With that, we're going to move to the public hearing. The public hearing, I will now open the public hearing, and I will have staff give a presentation, and I believe Beth Ann, you'll be giving that presentation, correct? So I yield the floor to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to tag team on this.
Oh, my apologies, Michael.
That's all right, not a problem. And then Beth Ann's going to go through the majority of this, but I'm going to do the introduction. I know that a number of council members have availed themselves of the opportunity to meet with Beth Ann and Jeff to ask questions, and that's great because that's the point of us trying to do this, is for you to be exceedingly well informed about the 2023 recommended budget. So, starting out, the city manager is required under state law to submit a recommended 2023 annual budget in October of the year preceding that budget. That was done. Next. I want to just talk a little about, thank you. That's about how quickly it would be nice to go through this. So the thing that's important, and this you'll find in the budget message, but I just want to frame this a little bit. Typically, jurisdictions throughout our country have a relationship with the macroeconomic impacts that are occurring in the economy, both nationally and internationally. And I don't ever recall a time, well, if you go back a ways, maybe the Great Recession was one, but really a time where there was both such a high degree of uncertainty, such a high degree of transition, and such a high degree of impacts from various sources that affect our ability to plan our budget and to plan literally for the value of money. So I just want to walk through what some of those are. COVID, as Ken earlier had mentioned, had a profound impact on local business, on labor habits, the way people conducted work, the way we conducted work, the safety mechanisms that had to be in place, the constraints on business, the difficulty in doing face-to-face meetings, all of that impacted the economy, and it impacted it for the negative. On the other hand, the federal government, both with first with the CARES Act and then with the American Rescue Plan Act, chose to try and influence and affect aggregate demand, which was to put money in the hands of consumers and in the hands of local jurisdictions and other governmental entities to help them continue their business, in which case you would create demand in the economy, which would sustain wages and sustain employment and would create the need for goods and services, and so to try to keep the economy functioning. So that was based on enhancing aggregate demand. The same time, recently, and these all kind of run together, we've had the war in Europe, in Ukraine, which has had profound impacts on the cost of energy and the availability of energy. That has both natural gas, the different petroleum products, everything that's hugely imported into Europe from Russia and into other parts of the country. And that was confounded by some of the actions of OPEC relative to not increasing the supply side of the energy equation, which has resulted in extreme and radical increases in the cost of energy. At the same time, all of those have related to constraints on the availability and supply of goods. So not only is it hard, for example, if you're doing construction projects, it was extremely difficult up till recently to find contractors because of the built-up demand. It was also very difficult to find supply of goods, and that had to do with the number of international dynamics, to some degree, the production levels in China. So while all that's going on relative to goods and demand and cost of energy, at the other hand, we had uncertainty in the labor markets. And uncertainty in the labor markets, which has never been fully explained, but habits changed during COVID, where people were working from home, doing Zoom, doing whatever, and a number of people found out that was a really desirable lifestyle, where they wouldn't have to provide childcare or daycare, whatever, for their kids, that they were able to keep them at home, and they were at home at the same time. And so it changed sort of the patterns of labor engagement with the economy as a whole. As we move forward, there's difficulty planning for attrition and retirements, but we're going to show you what that looks like for this city in this presentation. The same thing was difficulty in filling vacant positions, and it goes position by position. In some instances, in more in the skilled positions, but we have been unable to find, in some instances, any applicants for jobs. And in others, we found 40 or 50 applicants, depending on the type of job and what that labor requirement was. So it's been very complicated in trying to fill the labor force for the city to provide the services that it's used to providing pre-COVID. And then finally, the challenge in maintaining a stable workforce, the retention factor, has been very challenging because people have choices. And, you know, like major companies, Amazon, Microsoft, others, are now recalling workers to the campus because they're finding out they can conduct business in a more efficient manner face-to-face than all on Zoom. But Zoom is still hugely used. Next slide.
Okay.
So given those dynamics, and you can read that more in the budget message, we have employed the following strategies to try and address these challenges. And I want everyone to remember as Beth Ann goes through this, that there is a huge level of uncertainty, especially in the out years. If you were to say, you know, right now, Social Security, the increase, the COLA was about 8.7% for 2023. If you were to say, what will it be in 2024? You would get 10 different answers across a very extreme range. So there's no clarity as to what comes next. And so in order to guard against what comes next, you have to be positioned in a manner that you can address whatever comes that we don't know yet. And one way that we've done that, the council, to their credit, did that a long time ago. When I first started, is they raised the legal requirements for our fund balance to reflect what was done by the Government Finance Officers Association recommendations of the United States, which is 16.67% of your general fund should be retained in fund balance to protect you going forward from uncertainty. So the way that we're addressing some of these challenges, especially around labor, is that we learned a lot about enhancing our use of technology during COVID. That was true of the court, did a great job, community development, the same thing. PD institutionalized some technology changes. So we're trying to find the most efficient manner to use technology, which both frees up workforce but makes us better at what we do and therefore provide better services to our community. The value of training, as you will walk through this, as Beth Ann will walk through this, you'll see a lot of attrition, potential retirements. We've talked about succession planning a lot over the last 4 years, and you can see the results of that because we have in place a lot of positions that can pick up as changes occur. But one of the ways that we're trying to address that with younger staff or less experienced staff is to provide training and enhance their skill set so they can do more things than they had done previously. And finally, a last one, and I attribute this to Councilmember Pennington, I thought was very articulate when he said, as we were talking about the budget at the retreat, and we started talking about safety issues and worker safety, that doing more with less on a chronic basis is not the right answer. That's the wrong answer. That's a dangerous answer. So you can have times where people work exceptional situations, snowstorms, public emergencies, you have a hillside slide down in Woodmont. That requires immediate and ongoing attention until it's safe. But that is not a strategy ongoing, because what happens is heavy equipment operators, there's danger that they're tired, right? That's what happens during some of the snow events. These guys work a lot of hours in a row, and eventually that has to stop, and you've got to allow the people doing the work to replenish their energy and themselves. So we are emphasizing in this budget cycle those three elements, but safety being a critical one. And that's why in first quarter of 2023, we're hoping to have a council retreat where council can look at our available resources and make decisions about where the prioritization and allocation of resources should go. because it's not gonna be business as usual, because the resources simply don't exist, and the manpower to be hired, to be trained, to be implement goals does not exist either. It's challenging. So with that, I think that's my last line.
I'll take over from here.
Oh, right. You know what? I'm sorry.
Do you want to do this one?
No, go ahead. That's great. Thank you.
So as you was talking about safety, the 2023 workplace safety implementations, which is overseen by the Director of Human Resources and administered by the Department or Director of Emergency Management and Workplace Safety. So Adrian Johnson-Newton and Shannon Kirchberg got together, and with AJ's small but mighty staff, they have put together a centralized safety budget, which is in the 2023 budget. For training, they're to provide in-house safety driving training. All city employees whose position requires driving a city-owned vehicle will be required to go through this training, which will include the following: an online interactive L&I safe driving and distracted driving prevention training videos. Also, the police, in collaboration with the police department, staff will undergo driving evaluations with an emphasis on safe driving practices. They're going to provide an in-house first aid CPR trainings, and they're going to certify 2 city employees to provide those training. Currently, there are over 100 positions that require employees to be first aid CPR certified, and they're to create a robust and comprehensive safety orientation. One of the things is by bringing the CPR first aid and driving training in-house, that we're planning on saving $85 per person on CPR and $400 per person on driver's training. The collaboration with the police department to make sure there's safe driving habits and constructive feedback, so we can make sure we can keep our insurance and risk low. Compliance is going to be update the safety accident prevention plan, clarification of safety policies and procedures, digitalize reporting incidents and accidents, making it more accessible to everyone, ensure first aid kits are placed in all facilities, an awareness campaign to promote safer work environment, and introduce the city's new safety slogan that was voted on by city employees: stay alert, don't get hurt. So we'll start seeing that around. Now it's mine, it's numbers. This is in the budget document that was posted on our website. This is the general fund, the 2023 through 2027 forecast. So like Michael said, that we go with the Government Finance Officers Association target of 60 days, which is approximately 16.67% for our reserve surplus. And in this, the budget is that we had for 2022. One of the things is that when we ended 2021, we had a higher fund balance than what we anticipated, which is good news. And so in 2023, we have what we consider $23.3 million in operating revenues, but we also have a little over 1.5 million in one-time revenues. And then we have a little over close to 1.1 in one-time expenditures. In the operating expenditures, we're expecting 26 million. And as we go down to the bottom, we're within our 16.67 government finance officers target. And then as you go across, we maintain that reserve threshold. So some of our key revenue dynamics for the general fund: we did program the 1% increase in property tax for 2023. Please note that the city did not impose the 1% increase in property taxes for 2021 or 2022. We bank that capacity for future years, but I'm recommending that we do impose the 1% increase for 2023, and that 1% is 1% of our assessed, our property tax amount, which is 5.3 million. So 1%, we're talking about $53,000 that would be added to our property tax and would be distributed across all the assessed valuation in the city. Retail sales tax has recovered faster than anticipated, and despite the fact that our sales tax rate has not increased. Our business and occupation taxes decreased in 2020 and 2021, but are recovering in 2022 and 2023. A lot of that is impacts to businesses that they had to shutter their doors in 2020 and then getting back up to speed for 2021. And then we're seeing the recovery in 2022 and 2023. We have been very lucky to have the one-time American Rescue Plan funding to assist the city in covering the Parks and Rec staff to organize and provide programming to the community as long as it can be done safely. And they're continuing to open programs as they can find staff and to do it safely. We've programmed in 2 police officers and 2 social worker services in the police department. We've also provided funding for the reorganization of Muni Court and various other items that we have. We received in 2021 $4.5 million of the ARPA funding, or American Rescue Plan funding, and we received the second half in 2022. So that is all the money we're going to get from American Rescue Plan, and now it's just going to be the spending of those funds to support city services. Here we have the key revenue sources for the general fund, and I kind of did a perspective from 2017 through 2023, and as you note, we're going up from 2017 to 2018 to 2019 about $500,000 a year, and it's a little over 25 million. Then 2020 hits and we go down, 2020 hits and we go down again. We're revising our estimate for 2022 to be 24.7 million. And in 2023, we're just a little, 24.8 million. And it's good to note that we're not quite back up to our 2019 amounts. And our 2019 amounts did have some intergovernmental revenue, but it didn't have like the CARES Act, which we received in 2020, and it didn't have the ARPA funding. So as we go in the out years, the uncertainty is we need to get our revenues back up that we can sustain our operations without the grant money, because I'm not sure we're going to get additional funding unless the federal, at the federal level, they decide to do something else. But they've pumped quite a bit of money into the economy, and as we noted, that's some of the reason for inflation. So, factors impacting the budget: cost of living increases recommended are at 8%. Medical premium changes, really happy that they were less than anticipated. The city has received the Wells City rates from our Association of Washington City, which is approximately 2%, which is very helpful. Our regents went up 4.5%. Kaiser Permanente, 7% increase. And our Delta Dental, there was no change in premium, but there was a slight decrease for dependents. Then our one-time American Rescue Plan funding has been programmed 2021 through 2024. Funds may be utilized through December 31st, 2026, as long as we obligate them by December 31st, 2024.
Yeah, and Beth Ann, just one clarification. We are recommending cost of living increase at 8% for the coming year, which is right in the middle of projected cost of living by both inflation and what other agencies are doing. Some are above that, some are below that. That's literally our strategy to attract and retain labor force. And without that, we would be looking at more difficulty and more vacancies. So that's where that comes from.
Okay. Thank you. So my next slide is 2023 through 2027 Development Fund, 5-year forecast. Now the Development Fund is our permitting fees and planning resources and engineering fees that are for development. And the fund was created, I believe, in 2017 or 2016, and it's to when we collect our building permits, the projects usually are anywhere from 18 months to 24 months. So it's to keep that money secure and to be spent for the effort over the time of the project. And as you can see, we have Sound Transit revenues and expenditures in that fund, but Sound Transit should end date sometime in 2025. And this fund is to be, we're very conservative about our estimates here. So there may be if there's a large development in out years, there may be more revenue and more expenditures related to that, but we don't plan for it. So.
Yeah, and just a couple of things about that. So the development fund's interesting because typically your building department, what happens in governments that don't use this approach is that on the tail end of a recession, you run out of money and you've got to let people go. Then you see the wave comes down to the bottom of the trough, and then you start to go up as development occurs, and now you don't have the staff to address that development. So this fund is designed to smooth that process. So we always are able to retain staff, partly living off of, already things that are already submitted or permit applications or so forth, but also, and we help this fund start in order to maintain our staff through whatever lean times occur so that when the bounce upward, which is now occurs, we're in a position where we can facilitate development. And one other strategy in the budget process for the council is that we tried to be very strategic and careful in who we assigned which costs of salaries, especially to which fund, based on the function of the manpower. So not everything came to the general fund, but where it could be allocated elsewhere because of the nature of what the person was doing, we were able to do that, which helped protect our general fund.
Thank you. So, and then the next slide is our 2023 through 2027 Marina Fund financial forecast. And please note, there's no general fund tax revenue used to pay for marina operations. The marina is considered an enterprise fund or business type activity. So the rates charged for the marina are to be used for the operations, the debt, and the capital improvements for the marina. In 2023, I have a placeholder for bond proceeds. The marina dock replacement project is to be phased. And so I've shown that we've issued, we potentially could issue debt that year and then spend money for dock replacement. And that would be over the 3 years. As you can see, in 2024, I pick up additional debt service for the debt that we issued. And then in 2025, I did a second bond series for debt. And then I picked up in 2026 additional debt service. And as you can tell, our fund balance does decrease, but it's still at the end of 2027, it's a little over 2 million. And if you look at the improvements, capital improvements, we're talking about $9 to $10 million in dock replacement, but we only are looking potentially at 6.5 million in debt, because there are funds there that could be used that we've collected prior, that's held in fund balance for those projects. Part of it is that I know there's a lot of discussion and things going on. So these are just kind of rough estimates, and when it gets closer, we are talking about going out to the debt market. There will be a financial team of advisors, our bond attorney, city staff, that would pull all this together and do what's in the best interest and what's most financially feasible for the marina at that time. So, okay. And then I have, the next slide is 2023 to 2027 Surface Water Management Fund, 5-year forecast, and it's similar to the marina. And a lot of it is that it's rate driven. It covers its operating expenses. There's no general fund tax revenue that goes into the support of surface water management. It is also an enterprise business type activity, so rates charged are to cover the operating expenses, the capital improvements. This fund does not hold any debt, so it's a pay-as-you-go program. And I believe this year that they updated their the swim master plan. I think they did that this year. Look around for the public, yes. Thank you, Andrew, confirmation. And as you can see, that they have adequate fund balance in the year 2027. This is going into the positions, but before I go into positions, I do want to let you know for the meeting, the next meeting that we have budget, I will need to make some updates to the budget document, and I will get those out as soon as possible. I really appreciate the council members who gave us some critiques on the budget document itself. I did make a few mistakes in there on positions, and I need to update those. So I will get updated pages to you and note what changed. So I just thought I'd let you know that there were some things that need to be updated in that document for the next reading that we do. So on the review of department organization, we have vacancies, upcoming attrition 0 to 3 years, and succession planning strategies. At the director level, there are 0 vacancies, but for attrition, 62% could potentially retire in the next 0 to 3 years. Managers and supervisors, there's a 12% vacancy, and there's 7% attrition. Our general employees and Teamsters, we have 11% in vacancies and 9% in attrition. Our police guild, and these are only the commissioned officers, there's 5% vacancy and 17% attrition. So we have 144 total full-time employees. The attrition, 22 of those in positions, and we have 15 vacancies. So if you add all those together, it's 159 employees plus vacancies, and our 2022 total budget FTEs was 157.34. And that excludes extra hire employees. So that's kind of an overview. I thought HR did a really good job kind of summarizing, because as you get into the charts for the departments, they're colored and there's a lot of positions, and it's a little kind of hard to read. So I appreciated the overview that she provided. Let's see, there was one other thing I was supposed to, The flow charts or the organizational charts that we're going to see next are based upon reporting, the reporting model or who they report to, whereas in the budget, they won't align up because the budget document is more about staffing and FTE view. Okay. So the department organization key, eligible to retire now, it means you meet Department of Retirement Services age requirement for PERS, left to, or PERS, any PERS plan. You meet DRS plan requirements for service credits, and you meet City of Des Moines years of service. Eligible to retire in 0 to 3 years. Similar, but it's similar criteria, but within 0 to 3 years. And then vacancies is that there's an active vacancy for the position. And so the colors are there on the right. They may be difficult to distinguish as we go through the chart. So I'm gonna kind of let you know. So the first organization chart we have is the city manager's office. And as you can see, let's see, eligible to retire now would be Michael, the city manager, the chief of police, and the finance and IT director. Eligible to retire in 0 to 3 years would be our chief administrative officer and community development director, the harbor master, and administrative coordinator. And then there's no vacancies. Finance and information technology. Since I'm eligible to retire in about 6 months, the deputy finance director will replace myself upon my retirement. We've requested an additional FTE for the IT department in 2023 to plan for the succession of the IT manager that's eligible to retire in 0 to 3 years. And then our IT support analyst is also eligible to retire in 0 to 3 years. And then to address some training and succession planning on the finance side, creating an accounting operations manager position in 2023. I'm very proud of the finance and IT staff, and I have no doubt that I'm leaving it in very good hands. So, the department organization for the police, the chief of police is eligible to retire now. Let's see, I think the assistant police chief, both assistant police chiefs, and the office admin exec assistant are eligible to retire now. They eliminated a commander and created a second assistant police chief. And that is one of the changes that I did not get in the budget book. So that will be updated. Eligible to retire in 0 to 3 years, a CIU sergeant, a detective, a patrol officer. I missed in the eligible to retire now is another patrol officer, digital field and evidence technician, traffic patrol officer. They have 2 vacancies, a detective and a crisis response specialist, which is one of those mental health positions.
Beth Ann, you know, if I may talk about police a little bit. So not too long ago, we had 4 commanders leave. Barry and Bob, and then Mike Gradden and Doug Jenkins. And that represented well over 100 years of experience. But we also were able to bring on Ken right at that time, our current police chief. And through his leadership, one of our patrol sergeants became a commander, is now assistant police chief. Patty Richardson. Patty Richards doing a fantastic job on operations. We brought in Mark Cooey, who's been here, Assistant Police Chief. And so I think there's confidence in the ability of, under the leadership with Chief Thomas, to regenerate our resources. So they have not missed a beat. In fact, gone off to do innovative and creative things in a manner that was never done before. And that's exactly what the model of succession planning looks like, especially in a highly transitional time. And you got to remember that some of the agencies that we compete with for officers, Seattle was down 400 and Tacoma was down about 300. And they were coming up with very hefty incentives to try to attract in officers. So for us to be in this position with strong leadership and planning actively for the future, I think speaks well to PD. Thanks.
Okay. Oh, and then on the other side is that we added the ARPA-funded police officer positions in 2022. So in Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services, our Senior Services Program Support Specialist is eligible to retire in 0 to 3 years. We have 3 vacancies. And, well, actually, the vacancies, we have Assistant Recreation Manager, came about because Parks, Rec, and Senior Services Assistant Director was reclassed to Parks, Rec, and Senior Services Director. And then they reclassed Program Specialist into Program Coordinator, and they're currently recruiting for the Assistant Rec Manager. There's vacancies in the Recreation Leaders, extra hire, Youth Sports Referees, extra hire. And that's, I believe, Parks and Recs has been here to talk about trying to get people for the programs, and that they're doing the programs as they're able to get staff. So we have community development. Let's see. I think the community development director is eligible to retire in 0 to 3 years. That position was created when Susan left, community development director position, Denise Lathrop. We filled building official and assistant building official positions using incentivized advanced placement. And then there was an internal promotion for planning and development services manager. There is a permit coordinator who is eligible to retire. And then they do have a vacancy of a principal planner. So we have marina and events and facilities rentals. The harbor master is eligible to retire in 0 to 3 years, as well as, I think, senior maintenance lead may be eligible to retire now. Sorry. And then they have a vacancy of a harbor attendant. And then on, let's see, they created the assistant harbor master position, created the senior maintenance lead, and then they reclassed on the event side program specialist into senior events planner. And they have vacancies in the extra hire positions for events planning.
One comment about the marina.
Yep.
Sorry. Scott, you can correct me if I blow this. But one of the things I think we're really proud of is Katie has just done a fantastic job as the assistant harbor master. And we're pleased that she's been taking courses to become certified as a harbor master. Certified marina manager. And she's one of, I think, 2 females in the U.S. who's on the verge of receiving this certification. So we're really pleased with her effort in that regard to move forward, but also with the quality of what she's been doing.
Great. Public Works and Engineering. I believe this department has probably probably some of the highest vacancy rates. And I know that we had our maintenance supervisor retired this year, and they've promoted somebody into that position. There is a senior engineer that's extra hire that is eligible to retire. Admin assistant 2 is eligible to retire. They have 2 engineers, and I know that there's difficulty in recruiting those. They did do internal promotions for the public works director, the city engineer, and maintenance superintendent positions. They created a lead maintenance mechanic position that I believe they're recruiting for. And let's see, there's a couple maintenance workers, I think 3, that are vacant. So, and engineering technician swim is eligible to retire. So this department does a lot of work out on the streets, in our operations, in our capital projects. So I'm sure that they are keeping very busy. Legal, we've reclassed assistant city attorney and created a limited term deputy prosecutor position. And we do have a paralegal that's eligible to retire. I'm not sure he will. Did you want to say anything, Michael? Okay. Then we have municipal court, and as tonight, Jennifer said her goodbyes. She was court administrative officer. They created a judicial operations supervisor, reclassed to create support service administrator, and increased our court marshal to full-time for additional coverage in the court. They have vacancies for that court security part-time officer. They have a limited term court clerk position that's open, and I believe they're recruiting. And then they have a part-time extra hire court clerk that I believe will be filled soon. So.
And just one comment about the court, because all through this, hopefully what you're seeing, and we can talk more about it if any council members wants clarity, especially in the second reading. But what you're seeing is the succession planning going into effect. You know, we saw in, for example, finance, you know, Beth Ann will be leaving us next year, but Jeff is in place to pick things up. And he's got his idea for what the organizational structure could look like. And it's with the people that are there, and the people that are there, as Beth Ann referenced, are extremely talented. And so there's opportunities. Now mobility creates stability where people want to stay here because they have new opportunities. Exactly the same strategy that the chief used at the police department, creating mobility opportunities for his officers. In the court, it's very interesting. We just did a reorg in the court, created this court administrative officer position, but at the same time kind of enhanced the support services both for Melissa and for Serena. And so they're able to, you know, and we'll talk about what that succession is going to look like, but to maintain the I would just say the integrity of operations, continuity of operations of the court. And that's fortunate, but it's not unplanned. It's a result of, you know, setting this up so that when people leave or if they leave, we're able to pick up the difference. And so thank you.
No problem. I was going to go through our next steps on November 17th, 2022. We have a public hearing, 2023 preliminary annual budget, our second reading, and hopefully adoption. We will also have a public hearing on 2023 general property tax levy and revenue sources, and a public hearing for 2022 annual budget, the budget amendment. I've put down the motion. However, since we're in a public hearing, there's an opportunity for the citizens to provide input.
Yes, we have to do public comment first.
So I need to pass that off to Mayor
So
Mahoney.
there is nobody here, so as part of the process, is there anyone who didn't sign up that wishes to speak concerning the budget? Second time, is there anyone who didn't speak up that wishes to speak? And our third and final time, is there anyone who didn't sign up to speak that wishes to speak? Seeing no one has signed up to speak, we turn it over to council for questions. I'll start with Councilmember Harris. I just
Sure,
looked like you were turning on your thing. I was looking for a hand sign.
Trying to
All right, sir.
light, and going back to the forecast thing about 300 years ago in this, I apologize, but I just noticed this rather large jump in 2024, and I was wondering what, in terms of the revenue, and I was wondering what would account for that, and if I missed something, I'm sorry.
No, that's where we're hoping to recover back up with our program, our charges for services, that those will increase back up, getting to more full programming, and then also increases in retail sales tax and some state entitlements, trying to bring ourselves back up to, to a sustainable level.
And that's,
So it's a variety of revenues.
but, so, I mean, you're saying it's primarily just that the economy is gonna get post-COVID and.
Well, part of it's the economy doing post-COVID, but we also have things happening here in the city that we should be receiving sales taxes on. We're developing, and there's activities that should provide additional B&O taxes, that should provide additional sales and retail tax, and also just getting, raising some rates in our programming, so we're covering our expenses.
Got it. So I have to ask, since the whole ferry thing, came from one-time money, is there a placeholder in 2023 for that similar thing that I'm?
2023, I can answer.
You talking about ferry service?
Yeah. Is
There
there already a placeholder in here that I'm not seeing?
Not that I'm aware of. We anticipate bringing a final report from the ferry service to the council on November 17th. And if council wants to proceed to continue that process, then we would need to allocate funds for that.
Okay, and two other things. Can you give me an example of training? In the narrative, it talks, and you mentioned about training as an increase in efficiency, and I was just looking for just any specific. I'm not trying to.
I'll give you a specific,
Please.
which I already gave you, which was Katie's training.
Okay.
How to be
Good.
more efficient, better, innovative, cutting edge, Marina Harbor Master.
No, that's.
May I add
that's
something too?
Yeah, please.
Because we've done our financial management system, Jeff and I have planned for IT, a member of IT, and also a couple members of our staff to attend training for the Munis program, so they can go to a week training network and also see what the new developments are. I know with technology that the chief in his budget has included increased training for after post-COVID for his staff. And then as he gets technology on, they need specific training for new items. Sure. So it's a variety of things like that to make sure we stay on top of the technology.
Thank you. And last but not least, I saw something in there. Again, my eyes aren't that great, but going to the bond market for the docks, could you sort of expand on that a little bit, or is that, you mentioned a placeholder, I think, at some point? I mean, is that beyond the first tranche, which my understanding is the hoist, the center hoist, and like maybe LM and N, or is this? Are you basically trying to foresee anything beyond that first stage?
I looked at the capital improvement plan, And I'm not an engineer or a builder, and so I looked at the cash flow. And so for specifics, you'd have to talk to someone who knows more about marinas.
I'm not sure, I wasn't trying to, I see the placeholder and I just have to ask.
Placeholder is kind of like basically planning for cash flow, but as we get more specifics, then it would flesh out.
But also, there's a couple of other factors relative to and this is the difficulty in constructing the budget, right? Is that, okay, let's look at bonds, issuance of bonds, cost of issuance of bonds. So what is gonna happen? Is this a great time to catch bonds because interest rates are going up higher? Or is this a time to wait and see what happens with interest rates? Probably, I would vote for the second one, because I'm not convinced they're sustainable at that higher level. You'll start to see a sort of implosion, and then the Fed will want to address that, and what they'll do is they'll lower the Fed funds rate and bring it back down. But I want to remind the council that, and the public, that because of the financial management of this city over the past 6 years, we received a 3-step upgrade in our bond rating from Standard & Poor's, which saved us over $500,000 in the bonds issued for the North Bulkhead renovation. So we continue to enjoy the high end of the bond market relative to the saving of costs for the city. And then it's just a question of timing. When do you choose to pull the trigger relative to issuance of bonds?
Oh, yeah, one last quick thing. Do you have just a rough idea of how many homes are subject to property tax at the moment, or, vaguely?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
I was just trying to the 1%, I mean, it's really, not that much money, and I just wanted
We can bring that back for November 17th and make sure we answer that question for you.
Yeah, like, as I said, I just think it's something that, people just hear it and, but it's really, $10 or something like that, just probably. Okay, and I guess, but I wanted to thank you. I wish you had, there's a graphic that's wonderful in the document. I hope the public looks at it, that something like 17% higher than average are seniors living alone, and that just creates a lot of pressure on property assessments. It's regressive. The entire tax system is regressive, and we have to find some way gracefully to have people stay in their homes. Anyway, thank you.
Councilmember Steinmetz.
Yeah, I noticed you had the 2 officers that were hired with the ARPA funds kind of set off to the side as I read it, and maybe that's not a correct reading. Are the funds in place to make those sustainable positions so we will actually be able to increase the size of the force? And how long are the ARPA funds going to fund those positions versus come back into the budget?
We have them programmed out through 2024, and then at that point, right now, I do not have the funding in there to put them out too farther, but, a lot of things change. There's uncertainties, council sets priorities.
And additionally, great question. So additionally, the ARPA funds, as I understand, is if you designate them by the end of 2024, you can spend them through 2026. And so it would be our intention to find a way to get there relative to making those sustainable, because, adding the ARPA funding, some of the other innovative things that we've been doing with cameras and trying to find ways to do force multipliers with our use of technology. Those are all steps that we're taking, and enhancing the police force is something we absolutely would love to keep both of those positions. And it'll be not only, our work to try to identify the resources, but also future councils to allocate those resources.
And are we currently, and into the 2023, fully funded for the positions that we have, and fully staffed? Does that make sense?
We've budgeted for their positions that are listed in the budget, But as you noticed, there were a couple vacancies, and then there were, which I know he's recruiting for, and then there are a couple people who can retire, which I'm sure he has a plan for,
Okay, but those,
because he's always on top of it.
the funds are there for the recruitments?
Yes.
For the for the vacancies that we're trying to recruit into?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Buxton.
And so thank you, Mayor. Along the same line, so when the report of the FTEs was 157.4, something like that, 115. So it said for 2022, for 2023, are we expecting an increase in FTEs or staying the exact same? Is our budget for the exact same number of FTEs for?
Go ahead.
Yeah. There are a couple of requests in there, I think mostly related to IT. I don't recall any
I
others.
think IT is the
only one.
one that we're adding.
Yeah. So essentially, it's stable.
160 employees, basically. Okay, thanks.
Councilman Pennington?
Yeah, thank you. Really a comprehensive document. I don't have a lot of questions, but I just want a clarification on one. The 1%, that's the 1% on the gross property tax that we collect, not a 1% on the individual assessed value?
Correct. It's the dollar amount that we collected in 2022, which is 5.3 million. We take 1% of that, which would be 53,000.
Okay.
And it's the dollar amount, and we only get to add that $53,000 to our property tax.
Right, and so I just wanted to make sure people understood that it isn't like a levy assessment of so much per thousand of assessed value.
Thank you for making that clarification.
And then under your financial policies, we've got debt policies. It's on page 21 of the budget, which are sound. I mean, there was a reworking of that, and our policies, which got us to the place where we are here today, the things that we enjoy now. Are these policies? Are they codified? I don't recall. Are they codified into an ordinance, or are these policies?
I know that our fund balance policy is codified.
That is.
And I will have to look for the debt service, but I'm thinking it might be.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I knew the fund balance was, but I couldn't remember.
I believe the debt is.
Yeah.
And one, council member, one thing about bonding and debt in the city of Des Moines is that we have exceptional space in the debt capacity. The constraint comes with debt service. So can we afford the amount of debt? But we have access to much more debt than we currently have. Question is, can we pay for it? And being selective, that's on the council to help with.
Thank you.
Although a lot of my questions got asked, I want to talk about the utility taxes, which are showing 18.1% increase over the previous year. And it looks like in your adjustment, it's coming up. Can you cite a couple of the reasons why that would have that increase?
I know in our solid waste that we've had increased revenue come in from that on utility taxes. I think there was a rate increase, and I believe that there's been a rate increase on a couple of the other utility taxes. And so therefore, we're receiving more.
Okay, thank you. And then just to talk about the 8% increase, which makes sense to me, especially at the rate of inflation. Are the labor organizations, is this basically the consensus, they come in with numbers like this as well for those areas of labor?
Well, in some, in some instances, those are the function of negotiation with the labor organization. And if there are other things that they want, then that 8% is subject to, impacts from other demands or hopes, let us say. And so on the other hand, some of the Teamsters, for example, are locked into what CPIU is in a certain quarter, which is established by the feds that represent what the inflationary index looks like. So those are not, I think that what we're seeing is that throughout other jurisdictions, 7 to 8% is kind of the norm right now.
Okay, thank you. It sounded like to me, but I also I appreciate it because I wanted the public to understand as well. Do I have more questions?
All my questions have been answered.
All right. So does any council member have any more questions? Seeing none. I will now close the public hearing, and is there a motion? Councilmember Nutting?
I move to approve draft ordinance number 22-060 to a second reading on November 17th, 2022 for further, for further city council consideration and approval.
Second.
I have Deputy Mayor Buxton seconding it. All right. Is there any discussion before I take a vote? Deputy Mayor Buxton.
I just had a couple statements that I wanted to make before we vote to move it forward. So I just wanted to say, I had a lot of questions after reading through the document. Great document. I thought it was well organized, had a lot of information in, and I was so thankful that I was able to field a lot of my questions. Great answers. My paradigm moving forward in examining this document, and I'll probably make a statement like this next time, but I'm looking for items in it that help us to work toward creating a safe, green destination community. That was kind of the byline of my campaign as I ran to work for this community. So going forward, creating a destination community, no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that we have moved forward on so many fronts to work that issue. Creating green spaces in our parks master plan, lots of green space work and partnerships. And so I appreciate that. But the one thing I'm concerned about is creating a lot of green spaces that, what if we don't feel safe being in them? And so there is a lot of messaging across the nation, across our state, and in our community. There's just a lot of concern about safety. And so as we move forward in the coming weeks, it's going to be an issue that I'm going to continue to discuss and think about. When we allocated those ARPA dollars last year and we created those positions, I said, I wanted 4 officers with those ARPA dollars. We compromised and we created some behavioral health positions there. But I said when I passed that, when I voted in favor of that, I did say, however, every year moving forward, I want to make sure that I advocate to make these at least one position per year sustainable so that in 2024, 2025, we don't, as a council, have to come up with $500,000 that creates these sustainable positions. So I'm going to be asking more questions and hearing more answers and hearing ideas and brainstorming about how to make sure that when we get there, that question was already asked, I think, my colleague here. And so I just need to feel very comfortable about that we're creating some sustainable action towards safety in our community, and especially with these positions. So I feel like this document, it was incredible work in difficult times. Our staff and our administration, I'm so impressed. It shows, this document shows tremendous collaboration between departments. And as it is now, if nothing changes, it's full of good gifts for our citizens. So that's what I wanted to say as of tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
In the narrative, the city manager states that the budgets are a statement of values, and I would absolutely agree. I come from the world of software, and we wrote accounting software, and I believe in things being self-documenting. It's asking work of staff to do this, but I did mention to the finance people that this thing, now that we have the new software, should have copious footnotes because it describes the movement of money, but it does not express those values. It doesn't say, why are we putting this money here? Why is it going there? And that is the, that's the raison d'etre of budgeting, is to clearly express the values of the entity. And we're adhering to the letter of the law, but not the spirit. It should be the case where the layperson can look at it and go, oh, I get it. But at the same time, I'm sort of cringy about it because that's the bit that takes hours and hours to do those explainers. But that should be the goal that we're driving towards, that you open up the book and you look at it and you don't even need the presentation. You just look at the book and you go, oh, I see what the values are. That's it.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, so the motion is that we approve the draft ordinance 22-060 to a second reading on November 17th for further city council consideration and approval. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. We will continue this conversation on November 17th. All right. Moving on to new business. This time is for the sole purpose of proposing new business items that have not previously been before the council for discussion on a future agenda. This is not a time for questions about old business. Council members can submit questions or seek updates on previously discussed business to the city manager at any time. Do any city council members have new business that they would like to propose? Before we get into any of the council members, the city manager alerted me that he has new business he wanted to discuss. With that, I turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is not going to follow necessarily the role of this new business item for the council. This is going to be a slightly different focus on our recommendation for the city council to take action in regard to a land use situation. And I'm going to ask Denise Lathrop to provide a presentation to city council in that regard, and then we will go from there in terms of action. But we will be presenting to you tonight a draft ordinance that's been the result of many discussions and research and so forth to get us to this point. So this is one of those rare times where we're going to ask council to review what is presented to you, to take a few minutes to read through the ordinance, which we'll provide at the end of this, and then we're going to ask council for action. So this is one of those rare times. This is all authorized by RCWs. Denise, take it away.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Denise Lathrop, Community Development Director. The purpose of this agenda item is for the City Council to establish a moratorium prohibiting the submission or acceptance of development applications for new development within a 73-acre area located south of South 216th Street, which is shown here on the image on the right. It is also the purpose to set a date for a public hearing on the moratorium, establishing 6 months as the tentative effective period until the council public hearing, and to declare an emergency necessitating immediate adoption of a moratorium. So for context, a moratorium is a temporary pause or limitation on development. It allows a pause on all new development, land use, and construction applications in order for a city to consider new development and zoning regulations. It's one of the principal tools of local governments for implementing planning and growth management act objectives. The GMA grants cities the authority to adopt a moratorium through the Revised Code of Washington, which is cited here. It requires a public hearing shall be held within at least 60 days of adopting the moratorium ordinance and findings of fact justifying the City Council's actions. A moratorium can be in effect for 6 months, but may be extended to 1 year. So for some planning context, the city has invested over 30 million, including other funding sources, have been invested in transportation and infrastructure improvements to facilitate freight mobility and the creation of family wage jobs in the business park area. With the exception of the FAA office building, recent development of the Des Moines Creek Business Park and those adjacent commercial properties to the east have been predominantly distribution, warehouse and logistics, and light industrial. The city's comprehensive plan assumed a more balanced mix of commercial and business uses and job opportunities. So a moratorium will allow the city time to study the area and develop new policies, strategies, or zoning to help shape future development trends, facilitate the highest and best use, and create family wage jobs. Without a moratorium, the city could, in the near future, receive applications for new developments that could conflict with the achievement of the long-range vision and job growth for this area. So, Growth Management Act requires the city to review and revise its comprehensive plan and development regulations by December 30th of 2024. As you know, Vision 2050 has designated Des Moines as a high-capacity transit community. Des Moines was also allocated new growth targets of 2,380 jobs and 3,800 housing units for the 2019 through 2044 horizon. And high-capacity transit is expected to shift market demand and development patterns. So this provides an opportunity to address land use and zoning in the study area. So what the moratorium does and does not affect? It affects approximately 73 acres in the north central portion of the city in an area located south of South 216th Street, shown here on the right. It includes properties zoned business park, multifamily residential, single-family residential, and suburban estates. It prohibits the submission or acceptance of any development applications for new development, additions, and alterations in the identified study area. What the moratorium does not affect, it does not apply to any applications that were submitted prior to the moratorium or applications for tenant improvements, home occupations, sign permits, and permits that are required for upkeep, repair, or maintenance of existing buildings or properties, or work mandated by the city. It also does not apply to any property owners outside of the identified study area, which is shown here outlined in blue. So an overview of the draft ordinance, which you will see in a few minutes, is the whereas statements legally frame the information encompassed in tonight's presentation and will serve as findings of fact justifying the City Council's action. It contains definitions and key terms. It sets the date for the public hearing where the public can provide input. It establishes 6 months as the tentative effective period of the moratorium until the council public hearing. and it declares that an emergency exists necessitating that this ordinance take effect immediately upon passage by the majority of council vote plus one of the whole membership of this council. And at this time, I'd ask the city clerk to pass out the ordinance.
So we're going to give everybody time to read this, and then we'll go into questions and discussion. right, we've all had a chance, and it's so acknowledged that every council member feels they've had a chance to read the document. Okay? All right. Do I have a motion? Councilmember Nutting.
I move to suspend Rule 26A in order to enact draft ordinance number 22-058 on its first reading.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, Councilmember Pennington has seconded the motion. Discussion, questions? Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, what's the emergency?
As you know, we are in the process of starting our periodic review and update of our comprehensive plan. And as part of the work to do, as part of this work, we've been given new jobs and growth targets. And so we have limited commercial land within the city. And so this is the biggest geographic area adjacent to the business park and with many business park zone properties, that it creates an opportunity for us to evaluate the potential changes that will occur given that we are designated a high-capacity transit community. We're close to the Angle Lake Station. And to also look at that area relative to the growth that has occurred to date in the business park area to the north, which has been a lot more concentrated warehouse logistics and that, and we had envisioned sort of more of a mix of including some office and research and development, those types of uses. So by having a moratorium, it enables us to do the work we need to do before an application may inadvertently come in, and then that may not be the highest and best use that we want to see for that area.
Okay, but I'm not hearing an emergency.
Well, do you want to?
The emergency is to avoid an emergency.
The emergency relates to vesting. Without a moratorium, and this is right out of the ordinance, in the near future, city could receive applications for new development that could conflict with the achievement of the long-range vision and job growth for this area. So it really relates to vesting, and a moratorium is a common tool used to preserve the status quo, where if the council didn't act tonight, any property owner or developer up there would essentially be on notice of a potential change, and then could submit an application that conflicts with the council's long-range vision. So that's the emergency.
What potential change? What changed between last Thursday and today?
I don't know that I was specific relative to a date. The concept is that when you decide to do this and the state grants us the authority, grants the city council the authority to control the land use of the city, that this is a tool that we're putting in place to make sure that our comp plan review is not, is as robust as possible. And I use the word robust relative to, I don't know that anyone anticipated the robust development in the business park and in the Fernie Ono properties, and the, Bartell's showing up on outdoor research, Amazon building a facility just north of our city, the port expanding to the west. Is there a point we want to look at a different pattern of land use? So it's not that there's emergency based on a specific date. There's an emergency based on trying to avoid vesting that would prevent us from doing this review.
Right, is there anything precluding this coming forward as a normal agenda item by November the 17th? Is there some, I don't, okay, that's fine, thank you.
Councilmember Pennington?
Yeah, not often that you get a second bite at the apple on something. A few years ago, we looked at this property, and there, in the current zoning, and it was on 220th at about 16th, I think it was, or maybe 19th. There's that neighborhood, and the neighbors came here, and they were very concerned about the zoning and what was going to be put in there, and the semi-trucks that were going to be allowed to come out of that into their neighborhood, past their houses, past St. Philomena's School, and it was a pretty significant impact. I was opposed to having that happen to that neighborhood. The infrastructure isn't built to support that, and I view this as a second opportunity to take a look at that and figure out if that's what we want. Because quite frankly, I didn't then, and I don't now support a bunch of trucks driving through a neighborhood past these schools, and they aren't designed to do that. And so I'm okay with us looking at this again. For me, it's a second opportunity to make that point, and I would look forward to that. So, and I would hope that the neighbors there have the opportunity to reiterate their concerns. Thank you.
Council, I'll go with Councilmember Steinmetz, then you, Deputy Mayor.
So, as I'm reading this, my understanding is we're gonna, in this area, which has a lot of different uses in it. I mean, it's kind of an odd mix in that. We're gonna try to get a hold of that now and figure out what we want that area to be like. Is that essentially the thrust of what we're doing? And, you know, we all know what happens when an application is made. We lose a lot of ability for us to control what actually happens with that land, because if it conforms with the zoning, guess what? It's gonna happen. And we, you know, unfortunately, we've seen that with a number of places in you know, Des Moines, that, you know, nobody noticed until the application was there. And then, you know, the councilor of the city was kind of stuck, and frankly, council members get stuck between a rock and a hard place on that one. This allows us to get control of this now and make a determination then on how we want to see this land used, and looking at it in conjunction with not only all the different uses that exist in this particular area, but what surrounds it, and make sure it's neighborhood appropriate. So, I mean, I understand we have to get a hold of it. You never know what's gonna happen tomorrow, so I think we better act today to make sure we have a hold of it.
Deputy Mayor Buxton.
So just to be clear, we're not deciding anything about any zoning tonight. We're just giving some time, and residents will be able to come and hear and give comment in 60 days, correct?
The actual date, according to the document, is set for, the hearing date is December 8th, 2022.
So what we're kind of saying is, we're making a decision, so nothing happens
Until we get
for
it.
that time. So we're just giving some breathing space, is what you're saying. Yes, and we also have a grant fund for a housing action plan that we, in other words, we're already working on this kind of work off of a grant from the state, and so depending on even what could happen here, I mean, some of the work we have already done could be compromised, and so we want to make sure that we save all that work, all that time, and we have some breathing space, right? So, all right, thank you.
Is there any more discussion before we take a vote on the motion? Councilmember Pennington.
I will vote in support of this moratorium, and I think there probably isn't a council member up here that doesn't have a piece of property somewhere in their mind that they wish that something different could happen on. This is your opportunity to take that and to make sure that the right things happen. So that's it.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion to suspend Rule 26A in order to enact draft ordinance number 22-058 on first reading. All those in favor, raise your right hand. I see Councilmember Pennington, Councilmember Steinmetz, Deputy Mayor Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, and myself. All those opposed? Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Oxiger. The motion passes 5-2 with the supermajority. All right, so moving on to the Councilmember Nutting.
I move to enact draft ordinance number 22-058, establishing a 6-month moratorium prohibiting the submission or acceptance of development applications for the new development in the moratorium study area, setting a date for a public hearing and declaring an emergency.
Discussion. Councilmember Harris.
You need a second?
Oh,
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Buxton, I have a second.
Second.
Councilmember Harris, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I can recall the jubilation my son evinced upon entering law school, and one of the first things in classes he took involved zoning. And this is such an abrogation of council member government and the proper process. An emergency should be an emergency. Why not declare an emergency every time we want to do any kind of change to land use? So I will vote no. Thank you.
I would counter that with the fact that anytime we need to take action, if the city feels that this is an action that's appropriate to allow us to take a pause, and this is all that is a pause to go and look at the uses we see best fit. Nobody's hurt here. It just a pause, and declaring an emergency to make it effective now with a public hearing on December 8th is a reasonable ask. Is there any more questions or discussion? Seeing none? Oh, Councilmember Oxiger.
I just want to say I'm going to be voting no on this. This is the ultimate blindside. And, I just am not comfortable getting, this with no briefing or anything, prior. We're just suddenly coming in and plopping this down, and I don't think it's wise procedure.
Any more discussion before I take a vote? All right. So motion to, I won't read it, but everybody's seen it, and we have a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. I see Councilmember Pennington, Councilmember Steinmetz, Deputy Mayor Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, and myself. All those opposed? Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Oxiger. The motion passes by the 5-2 supermajority vote. All right. So is there any council member have additional new business? Seeing none, we'll move on to board and committee reports, and we'll start with Councilmember Pennington.
No report this evening, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Steinmetz.
Considering it's 10 to 9, no report.
All right. Councilmember Oxiger.
I just want to remind everybody that Monday is Halloween, and the Destination Des Moines has their trick-or-treat path going on. This is probably the biggest flood of our streets of the public at any one time, and it's truly amazing the number of kids that are out in costume, running around, and they're focused on one thing, and that's getting candy. So I would just urge the public to please be aware of what's going on, and please think of the safety of these kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nutting.
I have a few things, but I will hurry up. Happy 4th anniversary to the Quarterdeck, Mackenzie, and I wish they were still around. Movie at the Field House tomorrow night, the 28th, Friday, 7 p.m. Movie will be Hocus Pocus. Fear on the Pier at the Mass Center on Saturday, 29th from 10 to 2. Tide pools and lots of craft activities. Mount Rainier High School versus Kennedy Catholic football. I believe this is a playoff game, but don't. I know they made the playoffs, but anyways. Saturday the 29th, Highline Stadium, kickoff is at 1 p.m. Mount Rainier High School is hosting a trunk or treat fundraiser on Saturday, the 29th, from 5 to 7. $5 for one walkthrough. Destination Des Moines, as Councilmember Oxinger had said, trick or treat path, and as I say every year, slow down for those kids, please. Highline School District Regional Community Forum from District 5. That's most of Des Moines, is Tuesday, November 1st at 6:30 p.m. at Mount Rainier High School. Your opportunity to talk with the new superintendent and bring up any concerns you might have for your kiddos. Des Moines Waterfront Market, Holiday Market, Saturday, November 5th from 10 to 4. Daylight savings time is November 6th. Make sure to fall back. And Election Day is November 8th. Please be sure to vote. And if I went through that really quick, it's all on my Facebook page. If you have any more questions, thank you.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. So as everybody's packing up, I'll just tell you one thing. There is the listening session with Dr. Duran on Tuesday, and on your ballot is a Prop 1 for Highline Schools, and there seems to be an error. They have advertised that the millage rate will be $3.86, but they did an update on their website, which now says that it is reverting to $4.40. Our 1% is going to be trivial for most homeowners, but if that is accurate, that they're going to sell these bonds at $4.40, that will be significant for homeowners, and I would encourage parents to ask the school district about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Moving on to Deputy Mayor Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. Since our last meeting, I participated in about 16 engagements with colleagues, staff, citizens, boards, and committees. We discussed and advocated with regard to budget issues, domestic violence awareness, community and economic development, workforce pipeline and educational support, affordable housing and homelessness, public safety, and urban forestry. I thoroughly enjoyed and celebrated our community. Notable items. Since this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, there was a fabulous event hosted by our local Safe House Lighthouse, and it was incredibly successful, a great opportunity to network with community members. The mayor and his wife attended, Councilmember Nutting attended, and, or no, Councilmember Nutting, it was, I know. It was Councilmember.
Although we did win something on the online auction.
Oh, yeah, they had an online, it was a great time. Councilmember Pennington attended in person, so great event. Thank you to Lighthouse for the work they do in the community. We had also a great opportunity to engage with the residents down in Redondo about safety issues. It was incredibly successful, a lot of back and forth. Great to hear from that community, and I appreciated them taking their time to spend the evening with us. That was police chief and the mayor and I were involved in that, and that was a great experience. Then Soundside Alliance for Economic Development met this week, and we talked about creating some events this next year in 2023 to connect with the greater economic development community in the Seattle region, and also working to support our workforce pipeline through education. And that's all I have, Mayor. I'll let you talk about the other items.
I'm only going to talk about one. Last night, I was able to grab a few select residents from the city. Thanks to Ben Anderson, who's one of the owners of the theater. He gave them a tour. They were excited about it, and you should be too. There's some great things, and it's going to be a great draw, an economic driver to the city. With that, our next meeting will be November 17th for a regular city council meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn? I see Councilmember Nutting. I see a second by Councilmember Pennington. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0, and with that, meeting is adjourned. What's up, Gary? Hey, Gary.